Let's stop sugarcoating it. You're not where you want to be because you're still weak, and I don't mean physically. I'm talking about your mindset, your discipline, your drive. You say you want success, but your actions don't match your words. You say you want freedom, but you're still a slave to comfort. You say you're hungry, but every time it gets hard, you quit. That's not hunger, that's fantasy. Weakness isn't a condition you're born with, it's a habit you build. Every time you hit snooze, every time you scroll instead of build, every time you let fear decide your next move, you're choosing weakness. Piece by piece, day by day. You're not born weak. That's the first lie most people believe, the idea that strength is something you either have or you don't. That some people are just built for success while others are stuck where they are. The truth is, weakness isn't in your DNA. It's not stamped on your birth certificate. It's built, constructed, layer by layer, choice by choice. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you build weakness. Every time you avoid doing the hard thing, you reinforce it. It's in the little decisions. Waking up late when you said you'd rise early. Skipping the workout you promised yourself you'd do. Putting off the project again because you're just not in the mood. These aren't harmless moments. These are bricks. And every time you let one of them slide, you're building a wall that separates you from who you could be. Most people don't realize how they're conditioning themselves. They think strength just shows up when it's needed, but strength isn't summoned, it's trained. It's earned through repetition, through resistance, through pain, and just like that, weakness is earned too, not through struggle, but through avoidance of struggle. The more you retreat from difficulty, the more your mind associates resistance with danger. That's how fear grows. That's how self-doubt becomes your normal operating mode. You teach yourself that obstacles are threats instead of opportunities. The reason you're still weak is because you haven't built a new pattern. You're stuck on autopilot, and that autopilot is wired to keep you safe, not strong. It avoids risk. It avoids embarrassment. It avoids the unknown. And as long as you listen to it, you're reinforcing that wiring every single day. You're teaching your brain that comfort equals survival and anything else is a threat. But here's what people don't want to admit. Weakness is easier. It feels better at first. You don't get judged. You don't fail in public. You don't feel pressure. But you trade short-term ease for long-term regret because deep down you know you're capable of more. You feel it. And that inner conflict, that's the weight of your potential crushing you because you refuse to carry it properly. People want the rewards of strength without paying the price. They want to win, but they don't want to work through the losses. They want resilience, but they don't want to go through anything worth recovering from. That's not how it works. Strength doesn't show up for people who've never had to fight. It doesn't grow in the sunshine, it grows in the storm. And if you haven't stepped into your own storm, then you haven't even scratched the surface of what you're made of. You've been told to be easy on yourself, to forgive your laziness, to accept your current state because everyone struggles. And while there's truth in that, it's also the beginning of surrender. It's where people stop striving and start justifying. Weakness loves justification. It feeds on excuses. It thrives in conversations that make you feel okay with not trying. That's where it lives, in the shadows of your own lowered standard. People wait around for motivation like it's some kind of divine spark that'll strike them out of nowhere and suddenly push them into action. They talk about needing to feel inspired before they can start. But motivation is a mood, it comes and goes. And if you base your life on it, you'll always be inconsistent. That's why discipline matters more. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't care if you're tired, if it's raining, if your schedule's tight. Discipline shows up regardless. This is the difference between people who move forward and people who stay stuck. The ones who rely on motivation only work when it's easy, when they're hyped, when the stars are aligned. The moment life gets uncomfortable, when it's early, or cold, or boring, or lonely, they stop. Because they were never committed, they were just temporarily excited. And that excitement wears off quickly when you hit resistance. Discipline, on the other hand, is built through repetition. It's doing the thing over and over again until it becomes part of who you are. It's a quiet force, not flashy, not dramatic, but unstoppable. It's not about grinding 24/7 or burning yourself out trying to do everything at once. It's about consistency. showing up when nobody's watching, keeping your promises to yourself even when nobody else holds you accountable. That's where real strength comes from, not in the loud moments, but in the silent ones. People think discipline is about restriction, but it's actually freedom. Because once you train yourself to follow through, you stop being a slave to your emotions. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You gain control. You stop starting over every week. You stop quitting when it gets uncomfortable. That control is what builds confidence. It's what turns effort into results. The truth is, motivation is addictive, but it's also unreliable. It's that shot of adrenaline you feel after watching a video or reading a quote. It gets you started maybe, but it won't carry you through the hard part. The real transformation happens after motivation fades and you're left alone with the work. That's when discipline kicks in. That's when you prove to yourself what you're really about. If you only show up when you feel good, you'll never get very far. Because there will always be days when you don't feel like it. There will always be setbacks, distractions, failures. Discipline is what keeps you grounded when everything else is chaotic. It's the internal compass that keeps you moving forward even when you can't see results right away. You're not always going to be inspired, you're not always going to be in the mood, but you can always choose to act. You can always choose to push yourself, to do the work, to stay on track. That choice is where your power lives. And every time you choose discipline over comfort, you get stronger. You prove to yourself that you're not ruled by your feelings, but by your commitment to your vision. Comfort feels good, but it's a trap. It disguises itself as peace, as safety, as balance, but what it really does is dull your edge. Comfort keeps you in the same place, while convincing you that staying still is somehow a victory. But nothing grows in comfort, nothing sharpens, nothing transforms. Comfort is where progress goes to die, slowly and quietly. Growth, on the other hand, is uncomfortable by design. It stretches you. It demands more from you than what you're used to giving. It forces you to face your fears, your flaws, your limitations. And that's why most people avoid it. They say they want change, they say they want success, but the moment it gets hard, the moment things stop being convenient, they retreat. Not because they can't move forward, but because they've been conditioned to believe that anything uncomfortable is bad. We live in a world that sells comfort, fast food, easy money, instant gratification. Everything is engineered to make things simpler, faster, and more pleasurable. But simplicity isn't always progress. Pleasure isn't always fulfillment. And ease isn't always good. When life is too easy, your instincts dull. Your hunger fades. Your discipline softens. And before you know it, you're not living, you're coasting. Comfort builds walls around you. It tells you not to try too hard because you might fail. It tells you to wait for a better time. It tells you you're doing okay, even when deep down you know you're underperforming. It numbs the urgency. It silences the voice that says, you're made for more. And the longer you stay in that place, the harder it becomes to leave it. Because the more time you spend in comfort, the more foreign discomfort starts to feel, and that's dangerous. Discomfort is where all your potential is hiding. It's where your next level lives. That uneasy feeling when you're trying something new, that tension when you're pushing past what you thought were your limits, that's the signal you're growing. It means you're stepping outside of your default settings. It means you're not staying the same. Most people run from discomfort, but the ones who thrive are the ones who learn to lean into it. They treat it like a signal, not a warning. They understand that struggle is part of the path. That frustration is feedback. That stress, when harnessed, can become fuel. These people don't view hard things as obstacles. They see them as the proving ground for who they're becoming. Comfort keeps your dreams small. It tells you to settle, to play it safe, to wait until the stars align. But the stars never align for the person who waits. They align for the one who steps into the storm, into the resistance, into the uncomfortable conversations, the long nights, the early mornings, the difficult choices. That's where the shift happens. That's where you shed who you were and make room for who you're meant to be. Excuses are easy. They're comfortable, they're familiar, they sound logical, even reasonable, but they're the invisible chains that hold you in place. Every excuse you make is a brick in the wall between where you are and where you say you want to be. It doesn't matter how valid they sound, whether it's time, money, energy, other people, the weather, your past. An excuse is still a decision to stop. People don't like hearing that because it forces them to confront the truth, that progress is possible, but it comes with a price, and that price is accountability. It's easier to blame circumstances than to take ownership. It's easier to say, I can't, than to admit, I won't. Excuses protect the ego. They create a narrative that keeps failure external, not internal. And the more you use them, the more believable they become. You might say you don't have enough time, but the truth is, time isn't the problem. Priority is. You make time for what matters to you. You scroll, you binge, you stall, and you tell yourself you're just too busy to start. But busy is just another word for unfocused. People who want it bad enough find time, and people who don't make excuses. You might say you're tired, burned out, or uninspired, but those are symptoms, not causes. They come from a cycle of avoidance. When you avoid doing the hard things, the necessary things, you build mental clutter. That clutter weighs you down. It's not the work that's draining you, it's the guilt of not doing the work that wears you out. You might blame your past, your upbringing, your failures, your trauma. And yes, those things shape you, but they don't define you unless you let them. Many people have been through hell and still found a way to rise. Why? Because they stopped telling the same story. They stopped using their pain as a shield and started using it as fuel. Excuses multiply when you surround yourself with others who speak the same language. People who reinforce your limitations, who say, it's okay to slack off. You deserve a break. It's not your fault. That kind of environment feels good, but it's toxic to growth. It makes you feel safe staying small. Real growth comes when you're surrounded by people who call you out, not coddle you. People who remind you of what you said you wanted, even when you forget. Excuses kill momentum before it even starts. They keep your goals theoretical. They sound like logic, but they're really fear in disguise. Fear of failing, fear of succeeding, fear of being exposed, fear of being seen trying and coming up short. But until you're willing to move through that fear, you'll stay stuck not because you don't have what it takes, but because you won't let go of the stories you keep telling yourself. Excuses don't need to be loud. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they sound like good reasons. But if they're keeping you from action, they're still excuses. Taking full responsibility means recognizing that everything in your life, whether good or bad, is the result of your choices. It's about owning your decisions, your actions, and even your inactions. It's about understanding that you are the one who holds the power to change your circumstances, and no one else can do that for you. The moment you start blaming others, you give away your power. You surrender control. You become a passenger in your own life, letting external factors dictate your outcomes. People love to point fingers. It's easy to blame circumstances, people, or bad luck. It's comfortable to say that you didn't get a fair shot, that someone or something held you back. But that mindset keeps you stuck. It keeps you small. It keeps you from seeing that you have the ability to create your own path, even in the most difficult situations. Life is not about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens. You can't control everything, but you can control how you react, how you move forward, and how much responsibility you take for your next step. When you take full responsibility, you stop making excuses. You stop waiting for the right moment or for someone to come along and change things for you. You stop hoping things will get easier and accept that growth only happens through challenge. The more you take ownership of your actions, the more empowered you become. You stop blaming your environment, your upbringing, or the people around you for where you are. Instead, you look in the mirror and say, I created this, and that's the moment your power shifts. Owning your mistakes is just as important as owning your successes. Mistakes are a part of growth. They're not signs of failure, they're opportunities to learn. People who refuse to take responsibility for their mistakes spend their lives repeating them. They stay stuck in patterns because they never take the time to truly reflect on where they went wrong, to understand how their decisions led them to where they are. When you take responsibility, you embrace the lessons that come from your mistakes and use them as fuel to move forward stronger, smarter, and more prepared. When you start owning your life, you also start owning your future. The excuses stop. The blaming stops. And you become the person who creates results, who takes the necessary steps every single day to build the life you want. No more waiting for things to line up or for someone to come and rescue you. You stop being a victim and start being a creator. That's when things shift. That's when you realize that you can have everything you want, but only if you're willing to take full responsibility for the process. Responsibility is freedom. The more you own, the more you control. The less you give away, the more you keep. When you're no longer relying on anyone else to fix your problems or change your circumstances, you realize that you're the one who's always had the power. It's yours to take, and it's yours to use to create the life you've always dreamed of.